All right, folks. So yesterday I started seeing headlines, well, tweets, that all had very, very similar language. In fact, it was almost the exact same tweet from many different accounts, um, many of which were on sort of different sides politically. And I was very skeptical of this, just because of that. Why are all these people tweeting something with the same language? And they were all sort of like, I wouldn't call them all influencers, but they were sizable accounts. These weren't random bot accounts. None of them. I know these are real people. And the tweet was something to the extent of Operation Prosperity Guardian is collapsing, in all caps, as France, Spain, and Italy all withdraw from the program. Or it was something like that. Those aren't the exact words. But in a lot of the cases, these people were using the exact same words. And they all were using the word collapsing in all caps. And, it's the week of Christmas. I've had a lot going on, so I'm not here very much. But I had to pop in for a few minutes to go over this. So I looked into it, and it didn't take much. But I was surprised to see that actually this phrasing is pretty appropriate. It appears that Operation Prosperity Guardian really is collapsing, because when I saw, France, Italy, and Spain are refusing to take part, it's like, okay, so I don't usually think of Italy and Spain as great naval powers. France has somewhat of a navy, still, and no one other than the United States really has much of a navy to speak of. But in terms of as far as other countries go, I think France they at least have some ships, I think, that are capable of traveling long distances. But my concern was more, okay, well, were they ever even involved to begin with, or are they just saying, no, we're not going to take part in this? Well, I went back and looked at the Pentagon's original press release, which I discussed on this channel, and I remembered Bahrain on that list. It was the only country I could remember, and I'm sure Britain is there, because Britain was always there. Yes, it was Britain, Bahrain, Seychelles, but also France, Italy, Spain, and Greece. They cited 3 of the pigs, just not Portugal. And anyway, out of those countries, France, Italy, Spain, and Greece, it appears only Greece is participating. So Greece is actually sending a ship to participate in Operation Prosperity Guardian. And of course Britain is, because Britain always does whatever America does. It's always, to me, with Britain, people say, oh, well, Britain's just America's puppet. But then you go back and you look to World War II, and, the whole American empire was basically established by the British. And so, is it the tail wagging the dog? Is it the chicken or the egg? It's debatable. So I don't want to call Britain necessarily an American puppet. We'll just say that it's America. They're joined at the hip with the Americans. And so, of the other 2 European countries on this list, of the other 2 NATO countries, America's NATO allies, the countries that America's sworn to protect, there is Norway and the Netherlands. And one of those countries decided to commit to this operation, because they're not, last I saw, they are still on board. They're willing to participate. Norway is sending not 1, but 2 attaches. Yes, you heard it, folks. Norway is sending not any ships, not any weapons. They're sending 2 people. And the Netherlands, what are they sending? Oh, the Netherlands, they're on the water. They're a great seafaring nation. They must have quite the navy. They had colonies all around the world because of their great navy. From the Dutch East Indies over to Aruba. They still have Aruba. Down to Cape Town, all these Dutch colonies. Oh, the great Dutch Navy, right? Well, they're sending 1 attaché. 1 man or woman. It'll probably be a woman of color, actually. And So I have to give the Netherlands some credit. That's a pretty good troll. Oh yeah, of course, we're totally on board. We are going to go right along with America. We want to help. We're going to send a whole one guy. I mean, like that's a like a Geert Wilders level troll. But he is not the prime minister yet. So I guess this is Mark Rutte. So props to him. Oh, I'm sorry, there was one more NATO country, because I believe Canada is in NATO. I do not know what Canada's involvement will be. But basically, I think it's safe to say that Operation Prosperity Guardian will be conducted by the U.S. and the British navies. It will be all Anglos who will be doing the heavy lifting here. It will be Anglos who are bombing Yemen once again. I mean, it's so embarrassing because this is like what happened with the Iraq War, to where, every country except for Britain, and Australia, I guess, didn't Australia side with the U.S. in Iraq? Because I think I've heard Australians say, like, hey, we're the only ones who went along with literally every single American war. Because the Australians were in Korea, they were in Vietnam. I don't think the British even went to Vietnam. They were in Kuwait. They were in Iraq. Yeah, so this time, Australia, I think they're saying that they support it. They're not officially on the list. I think that the official reason was like, oh, we don't have the resources to send up there. Which sounds very reasonable, to be honest. Because the Americans don't have the resources to send over there either. That's why our government just prints whatever resources they need. And that's probably not great, considering that the U.S. already was saying that this is not, the U.S. does not have the resources to guard every single ship that is moving through the Red Sea. A guy from one of these, military-industrial complex think tanks, one that I believe is funded by the UAE. So the UAE, for context, was a part of the war against Yemen. They were sort of on the side with the Saudis, not really. They were backing different proxies. Like the Saudis had their guy in Yemen, and then the UAE was backing the Southern Secessionist movement in Yemen. But either way, UAE, very anti-Houthi. Their guy from this think tank, he was summarized because he was sort of live tweeting the press conference or whatever, and he's trying to he's on the side of wanting the Houthis to be vanquished. And what he equated this to, what the U.S. is doing, ideally, under ideal conditions when they had full participation for this Operation Prosperity Guardian, was zone defense, not man-to-man. Meaning there would be U.S. Navy ships in the Gulf of Aden, in the Red Sea, that would be somewhat available to respond if a ship signaled that they needed help. But, they get there when they get there. But if they are responding, theoretically, or hypothetically, not theoretically, this isn't a theory. I mean, we know what the Houthis have said that they will do. Most likely, these American ships will come under attack as well. Once they get to the choke point, I guess, which I always forget the name of it. It's not the Straits of Hormuz. That's over the Persian Gulf. Then you have the Straits of Malacca. That's over by Singapore, Malaysia, that whole area. But I forget the name of the strait when you're coming out of the Red Sea and into the Gulf of Aden. And considering that the Houthis do not have a navy, They have a few helicopters, I guess, that they use to land on these ships. The U.S. will just be firing off missiles at mainland Yemen. And so what all this comes down to, what Operation Prosperity Guardian is a plan to do more of the same, to go back to bombing Yemen after the U.S. Officially stopped, I think, in 2022. And you have these idiots on Twitter, like there's some influencer guy who is some ex-military type of, super-duper secret special ops man. And he said, give me a company of Marines in a couple weeks. We'll take care of these Houthi clowns. And people say this so smugly, so confidently. He doesn't even have the basic interest in the situation to Google it, maybe, and find out who these people even are. Because if he did, he would realize, oh, the U.S. was at war with these people for a decade and lost. He doesn't have, and this was a viral tweet. It was getting thousands and thousands of likes. People loved it so much. And you're seeing this all over right-wing Twitter. It's like Afghanistan never happened. They already know. We know that it's like Yemen never happened. The war in Yemen, 10 years, erased, because nobody ever knew what was going on. But everyone knew Afghanistan was going on for 20 years. And so you had 20 years in Afghanistan. America loses. You would think that maybe these guys, these big macho, support the troops or GTFO guys, these guys who demand, special discounts at IHOP, you would think maybe they would have some humility and say, gee, we just got our asses kicked for 20 years by a bunch of goat fuckers. Maybe I should do a little research. Maybe I should think for a second before I confidently state that, with a company of Marines, I could just topple another Middle Eastern country. I mean, because that's really how you should look at the U.S. military. These are not the people who won World War II. All those guys are like 99 years old now, or dead. The guys who are in the U.S. military now, those are the guys who lost in Afghanistan, who destroyed Iraq and accomplished nothing other than death and destruction. And, of course, turning the country over to Iran, making it, pretty ironic. They always talk about how terrible, oh my gosh, these countries are going to become a proxy state of Iran. Somehow, every time the U.S. invades a Middle Eastern country, at the end of the day, Iran ends up way more influential than they ever were in that country. Syria now? Syria is forever indebted to Iran. Syria would have been wiped off the map by ISIS if it weren't for Iran and Russia. Yemen was completely cut off from the rest of the world. They had no friends. Everyone was pro-exterminating the Yemeni population. Every last man, woman, and child. That was the policy. That is what they were doing. That is why they destroyed the water supply. That is why they destroyed the food supply. And that's why they cut off food imports. It's why they bombed children's hospitals. The policy was extermination. And why? Because they said... And so now, guess what? Iran was the only country that didn't turn on them. And not because Iran had any real opinion on what was going on in Yemen. They didn't know any of these guys. They had no affiliation with anyone. But they're like, well, gee, I guess you Houthis have the same enemies as we do. Let's be friends. And they're like, yeah, you know what? We should be friends. Because we have common interests. So guess what? Yeah, you bet the Houthis are allies of Iran now. You bet Yemen is a friend to Iran. Because Iran is the only country that didn't want them all literally dead. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here the next time.